So I don't know how many of you were aware, but a lot of people have gotten entrenched, simply fascinated by the idea that you can live off dividends. And because of that notion and how much I've been seeing it on my homepage, I decided to do a little bit of research into the idea of retiring just on dividends to see exactly how much money it would take, if it's even possible, and honestly, if it's a viable option for many people. So in this video, I plan to break down how exactly you can live on dividends and the steps that you need to take in order to achieve that goal. And if you think you'll find any kind of value in this video, the only thing I ask for you is to go down and drop a like on the video. It really does help the channel out, and even if it doesn't help the channel out, it just makes me a little bit happy. So the first step to living off dividends, and I don't mean to pop your bubble right now, but it is going to be a little bit mundane, and the very first thing that you need to do before you even consider this is to create a budget. Now, the reason why you want to start this whole journey off with creating a budget is that this is going to be the foundation of everything else that I talk about in the rest of this video, because the numbers can change drastically if you even spend an extra $5,000 per year. So by having a solid budget in place, you're able to plan your expenses, and by planning your expenses, you're able to know almost to the exact dollar how much money you would need invested in order to live on the dividends. So my go-to in creating a budget is a little bit more manual than most, and I keep track of all of my income and expenses on a Google Sheet spreadsheet. When I first got started on my financial freedom journey, I kept everything in a notebook similar to this one, but I found as I've added more expenses to my monthly budget, it is much easier just to copy and paste online and have some of the formulas in Excel run for you automatically. However, even for people who don't like to keep track of their stuff in Excel and don't like to do stuff manually, there are a ton of apps like Personal Capital and Mint that you can connect your bank account to that will allow you to automatically see your income and your expenses every single month for you. But whatever way that you choose to budget, I just think that it is important to get a budget so that you can move on to the next step if you want to actually live off dividends one day. And also, before we even talk about the money, it is also going to be extremely important for you to figure out what your legacy is going to be. And I know that as a young person, I'm 24, about to be 25 years old, it is sometimes hard to think about legacy. It is sometimes hard to think about, oh, what am I going to leave my children or my grandchildren or anything like that, because that seems so far in the future. But I am here to tell you in this video that it is important to think about these things early, because the earlier that you think about them, the more solid of a plan that you will have when you actually get to that point. You don't want to be 75 years old and trying to divide your will out evenly, and you're giving yourself a huge headache because you never thought about this kind of stuff earlier in life. And the reason why you want to understand what your legacy is when you want to live off dividends is because the amount of money that you want to leave after you leave this earth will drastically affect the amount of money that you need to invest before you decide to retire and live off your income. And that step leads right into the first calculation of living off dividends, and that calculation is something known as the 4% rule. So if you did the first two steps, meaning that you created a budget and you decided what your legacy would be, now we can move on to this thing called the 4% rule. And what the 4% rule states that since the stock market has historically grown overall at a rate of 8% per year, you will be able to sustainably take 4% out of your portfolio every single year without ever worrying about running out of money. For example, if you had a $1 million portfolio, you could take $40,000 out of that portfolio every year, and at the rate of growth of 8% a year, your portfolio would actually continue to grow even though you're making withdrawals for it. And at the end of this video, in order to wrap all of this up and make it make sense, I'm going to use my own personal situation as far as going through all of the steps I'm talking about in this video, just to show you how much money I would need in order to live off dividends if I took all of these steps into account. And the 4% rule in itself is a little bit more conservative, meaning that you would take 4% out of your portfolio if you want to leave something behind for the people after you, or if you just wanted to be absolutely sure that you would not run out of money when you are old and gray. 4% is like a good rule of thumb based on historical averages, but as we all know, that doesn't necessarily predict the future, and being able to retire only on 4% of your portfolio may not be realistic for a lot of people, so they have to take more aggressive measures. And a more aggressive measure that you can take is that instead of using the 4% rule to take 4% out of your portfolio every single year, you could instead opt to use the 8% rule, which is almost the exact same math, but instead of taking 4% out of your portfolio every year, you are instead going to be taking 8% out of your portfolio, so that in an average scenario, if you have $1 million portfolio, you can take $80,000 out of that portfolio, and then your $920,000 would grow by 8%, which will put you at a little bit less than $1 million a year. And the thing with the 8% rule is that you are kind of going to be planning on running out of money at some point in the future. You won't be able to use the 8% rule in perpetuity. However, you may be able to get by with the 8% rule for 30 or 40 years before you run out of money. And that is simply because you will be withdrawing more money than it is making every single year. But if you have supplemental income on the side of your portfolio, so you don't only rely on your portfolio income, then this may be a more realistic option for some people because you will need way less money in order to actually reach the point where you are considered financially free. So now what I'm going to do is take out my phone to show you in my own personal situation how all of these numbers will work out. So step one, as I said earlier in this video, the first step will be to create a budget in order to see what kind of living expenses you would actually need in order to live off your portfolio. And for my personal situation, that is going to be about $50,000 a year. If I wanted to live a more inflated lifestyle, then obviously this number will be a lot bigger. And then the second step would be understanding my legacy, meaning that will I want to leave money behind for my children and never worry about running out of money, even if that means it takes longer to reach that goal, or do I want to reach that goal as quick as possible and start living off my portfolio as quick as possible? So if I chose the option that I want to leave something behind and never run out of money, I would then divide this annual number by 0.04, meaning that I would need $1.25 million in a portfolio generating over 4% in order to be financially free. However, if I wanted to live off my portfolio as quick as possible and I divided this number by 0.08, I would need about half of the amount that I needed before at about $625,000. But before you think that the 8% rule is all fine and dandy, let me show you how quickly this money can actually run out. So if we take the $625,000 and we subtract $80,000 from this, I would then be left with $545,000. Okay, so this portfolio grows by 8%. So now I have $588,000, and then I subtract another $80,000 from it. And then after the second year, if it grows by 8%, at the end of only the second year, the portfolio value has decreased by $75,000. So if you extrapolate this for years in the future, you can pretty much expect to run out of money in about 10 or 15 years just from living on the money generated by this portfolio. So that's why personally I think that the 4% rule is a much better option, even though it may be unrealistic for some people from the sheer amount of money that you need in order to get started investing. But with that being said, if you found any kind of value in this video, then tap the like button down below for your boy, and also subscribe if you want to see more finance, more side hustle, and more ways to generate passive income, as I have a lot of those videos on the channel and plan to post in the future. And as I always say at the end of my videos, as a thank you from me to you, if you go down to the description and sign up to the Public app, Public will give you a free stock just for signing up. You don't have to deposit any money at all. Just go over there and sign up and create an account, and you will get a free stock valued anywhere from $300 to $300. However, I hope you did enjoy this video, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Peace.